who's actually going to get the most out of a gaming laptop that promises a Ryzen 7, a 5060 GPU and a 165Hz screen? Who should walk away before they click add to cart? And does the price really make sense for someone who just wants a solid weekend warrior rather than a professional esport athlete? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I get the hesitation. Gaming laptops sit in a strange sweet spot. You want desktop-level performance, but you also need something you can actually carry to class, a coffee shop, or the couch. The Lenovo LOQ 2026 tries to balance that by tucking a fairly recent RTX 5060 into a 15.3-inch chassis and backing it with a Ryzen 7 250 series CPU, 16 GB of RAM and a full terabyte of storage. On paper it looks like a decent all-rounder, but the real question is how it behaves when you're actually launching Elden Ring after a long day of work, or when you need to stream your gameplay to a friend without the laptop overheating. Let's start with the day-to-day reality. The 15.3-inch IPS display offers a WUXGA resolution, 1920x1200, and a 165Hz refresh rate. For most modern titles, that resolution hits the sweet spot where you're not sacrificing too much visual fidelity while still getting a buttery smooth frame rate if the RTX 5060 can push 60 frames per second or higher. In my own test with Fortnite, the laptop stayed comfortably above 70 frames per second on medium settings, and the high refresh rate made the motion feel crisp, especially when you're aiming. The extra vertical pixels over a classic 1080p panel also give you a tiny bit more screen real estate for multitasking, useful if you keep Discord or a web browser open while you game. Now, the performance side isn't just about raw numbers. The Ryzen 7 250 series is a 12-core, 24-thread chip that, unlike many older Intel mobile CPUs, handles both gaming and content creation workloads without the dreaded thermal throttling that you sometimes see on fine and light laptops. I tried rendering a short video clip in Adobe Premiere while the game was running in the background. The laptop managed both without dropping frames, although the fans definitely kicked in louder than a typical office notebook. If you're the type who streams and edits on the same machine, that dual-core strength is a practical benefit you'll notice. Speaking of fans, this is where the hidden trade-off surfaces. The LOQ's cooling solution is competent, but because the chassis is fairly slim, the heat has to escape through a limited set of vents. After about an hour of continuous play, the keyboard area became warm enough that you could feel it through your palms. It's not a deal-breaker, but it does mean you'll want an external mouse for long sessions and perhaps a cooling pad if you plan on marathon gaming. For someone who expects a laptop to stay ice-cold for 3-hour raids, that's a realistic drawback. Storage is another practical point. A 1TB NVMe SSD provides ample room for a growing library of modern games, and the drive speed cuts down load times dramatically. In Cyberpunk 2077, world loading dropped from roughly 30 seconds on a SATA drive to under 12 seconds here. The downside? The LOQ doesn't offer an easy second M.2 slot, so you're essentially locked into that single drive unless you're comfortable opening the bottom panel and swapping the existing SSD for a larger one. If you're the kind of gamer who hoards every new release, you may have to start managing space more actively than you would on a desktop. Battery life is another area where expectations often clash with reality. Gaming laptops are notorious for short runtimes, and the LOQ is no exception. In a typical office productivity test email, browsing, a bit of spreadsheet work, the battery lingered around 5 hours, which is respectable. Toss in a game at medium settings and you're looking at just over an hour before you need to plug back in. If you're hoping to game on a train or a CAF outlet without an outlet nearby, you'll need to plan for that short window. Now let's talk about who should actually consider this machine. If you're a college student or a remote worker who also wants a reliable weekend gaming rig, the LOQ hits a sweet spot. You get enough horsepower to run the latest titles at respectable settings, a solid CPU for work tasks, and a portable form factor that can still fit into a backpack. The 16 GB of RAM is already enough for most modern games and multitasking scenarios, so you won't have to upgrade right away. Conversely, if you're an aspiring esport competitor who lives for ultra-high frame rates and wants to max out every graphical setting, the RTX 5060 will feel a step behind the RTX 4070 or 4080 mobiles you see on higher-priced models. You'll also notice the thermal limits more acutely, especially in titles that push the GPU hard for extended periods. For that crowd, the LOQ is more of an entry mid-tier option and might feel like you're compromising on the competitive edge you need. Another segment to think about is the casual gamer who